I just finished Goblin Slayer. Goblin Slayer pretty good, bro. I enjoyed it. And I'm gonna say it like this. This is why I'm gonna say it is good. Goblin Slayer is literally what its name says it is. Meaning that basically the whole show is just a badass nigga who wears silver armor, the armor's clean as shit, and he slaughters freaking goblins. That's all he does the whole show. But that's why I like it. It's simple, it's straight to the point. You know, that's how the show is. It's simple, straight to the point. It does exactly what it says it's gonna do. I think I like it because it's simple and it doesn't do too much. Now there are people that I've seen some people do reviews and they said it was trash or said it sucked or whatever. I liked it for what it was. For some reason, I was strangely really intrigued and enjoyed this show a lot. And I think it really has to do with the fact that it's not necessarily the Goblin Slayer himself. It's really like all the people around him being so obsessed with what he's doing. Because basically he goes into a guild and he just goes and he gets his little requests to go to different cities, to go to different dungeons and caves and forests to go fight goblins. That's it. The reason why he fights goblins is because his family basically got killed by goblins, and his sister, if I remember correctly, got raped by the goblins. So, because literally the goblins in this story are crazy. They kill niggas and then they rape women. That's literally what the goblins do. That's their whole story of what they are. And in the first episode, they show a rape. And basically the Goblin Slayer helps this priestess girl. Because you know a lot of these fantasy esque type of anime that are based on light novels and mangas, or you can call it, some of them it's really similar to an isekai. It's like right next to an isekai basically. But you know, basically he meets one of those young priestess, and there's been like, I think I've watched 4 or 5 different shows that have the cute little chicks who are like young priestess who have like the magical powers to summon shields and barriers, and they can heal sometimes. And basically what happens is he goes into a dungeon to fight goblins, and there's a group of adventurers. Because a lot of these shows have guilds and adventurers, and all the adventurers get slaughtered except for the one girl. One of the chicks even gets raped. And he basically saves the priestess girl, and she decides to be his companion every time he goes to a new city to fight goblins, or a dungeon or an underground cavern to fight goblins. And that's basically how it is for the first couple of episodes, and then we end up getting a group of people that hang out with him. There's a elf chick who uses bow and arrows. There's a lizard who literally looks like an Indian, and I freaking love him because he's freaking cool as hell. And then there's a what is it called? Not a gnome. What are they called? Oh my gosh, bro, is it dwarf? What the heck is it? Hold on, I gotta look that up because I need to know. I need to know. Hold on. Y'all give me a second. Because I always forget this one fantasy name, and I don't know why. I always forget not fantasy name, but fantasy race. I always forget the name of this one fantasy race, and I don't know why. Goblin Slayer characters. Let me see. And of course, it's not going to show him. Oh, there he is. He's a dwarf. He is a dwarf. All right, dwarf shaman. Okay. And he's a dwarf. And basically, even though the Goblin Slayer likes to do his things alone, you know, because he's a very mentally damaged individual. He's kind of like Batman, where he's mentally damaged. He goes on adventures with these group of people. Basically, and they have really simple names, because the lizard dude, he's a lizard priest. The one that dresses like an Indian. And then the dwarf dude is literally called a dwarf shaman. And then the elf that uses bows and arrows, she's literally called a high elf archer, which is somebody who uses bow and arrows. You know, they're very simple with how they're fantasy characters, and yet I enjoy them so much. The dynamic of the characters is really good, even though the story is super simple. It's like the most simple anime I think I've watched. But this is the thing about it. It doesn't try to be deep. It doesn't try to act like it's some overly deep show, kind of like Neon Genesis Evangelion. It doesn't try to be all super deep. It literally is just like, yes, this guy goes, he kills goblins, and we know that goblins are evil. We know that goblins rape people and they kill people, and all he does is literally go and kill them. Now, one thing that's funny is he's known as like a weirdo. Everybody thinks he's weird because he only goes after goblins. That's it. And one thing I've also noticed about this story basically is a story where it's like we don't follow the great, amazing hero that stopped the Demon Lord, because the main character is the Demon Lord. We're looking at a side story in one of these fantasy worlds where it's literally like the side story that nobody would think to be into. You know, nobody's going to care about the guy who's slaying goblins. Most people are going to care about the person who's fighting the big bad at the end of the damn game, or anime or light novel, whatever you want to call it. It's based on D&D. Like, you can tell it's based on Dungeons and Dragons. And all those other different tabletop games. But I like this because it's a side story, and you wouldn't think that it would be interesting, yet while I was watching it, I was super invested. Mostly because I just wanted to see where it was going to go and how it was going to keep my attention. But it's only 12 episodes, let me see. So I deadass just finished it. It's 12 episodes, and there's a little movie called Goblin Slayer, Goblin Crown. And I believe that the movie is just a recap. Because usually when they do these anime, most of the time the movie is literally just a recap of all the episodes just mixed into one. They did that for Death Note. But one thing, I like this show because I like how the character looks, and he's just the epitome of badassness. He's basically like Berserk. You know how Guts is like this very depressed character. He's basically like Guts, but like lower level version of Guts. And I think that's probably the reason why I like him so much. He's just a simple character. He's kind of messed up in the head, and everybody around him, we're all paying attention to the reactions that he gets from everybody around him, because everybody around him judges the hell out of him. He lives with this girl with big boobs and this guy, and she loves him, but the guy is like, I don't know, he acts kind of unhinged and he acts kind of weird. And then the people in the guild think he's weird because he's not an adventurer to them, because he only fights goblins. But to me, I actually think he's pretty cool. And I realized too, this is kind of a social thing, but they're obsessed with him because he just, you see him come in, he talks, he leaves. And that's how people really are in real life. People used to do that to me all the time, because I'll be silent and I'll be chilling. I'll get my shit done. I'll go back to my room, mostly when I was in college and shit. So I kind of understand him. You know, I understand him on that level, on that aspect of, I like to hang out by myself and do my own thing, but people around me judge me for doing my own thing. But I don't really give a fuck. Like, we both kind of have that in common. I only care about the ones who are around me that like me. Now, one thing I like about this story, though, is that the people in the guild, I always pay attention to him. All the good, strong adventurers and whatnot, they pay attention to him because they're just like, oh, he kills goblins. But we go on big adventures. And he's a silver ranked adventurer. Like, he has the rank. But they don't consider him an adventurer for some reason. Even though technically he still goes on adventures, they don't consider him one because he just kills goblins. But he's a silver rank, which is a pretty high rank. I'm assuming the highest after that would be gold, and then after that it'd be like platinum rank or something. I don't know. I think they said it in the show, but I can't remember. But yeah, so we get to see his little side story, and I really like it. Now, one thing that's cool is we get little flashbacks of him being a kid and him having a master who looks like a goblin. I'm assuming that actually was a goblin that was training him. And we also find out that he's actually genuinely scared a lot of the time when he's fighting. He's just a very calm, cool, collected kind of guy. Now, one thing I really like about this show is the fact that at the end they have this big war, right? The last like 2 episodes, episode 11 and 12, basically everybody in the guild agrees to fight with him to stop the goblins, because he finds out and notices, because he always is fighting goblins, he's like, there's a goblin lord and they're about to come into our village and try to kill us and rape the women and all that stuff. And I thought it was just interesting because it was like, at first, you kind of feel the nervousness from him. He thinks that they're not going to help him and stuff. But everybody decides to help him. And he straight up says that he would give them everything and anything for them to help him. And they end up helping him. And then there's a lady that's at the front of the guild. She's the one who does like the adventures or whatever and gives the little change or whatever. She basically tells everybody like, hey, if you kill goblins, you'll get a coin. So they all go and fight goblins for him, and he finds out that they actually all kind of like him, even though they call him a weirdo. It's like they like his presence. They like him being around. They feel like even one of the guys in the background is like, man, if he's not around, it'd be weird to not have the Goblin Slayer around. But everybody ends up helping him, and then it's cool because in the last episode, like we slightly get to see his face, like the back of his head. But in the last episode, the little priestess girl, she's like, I want you to do a favor for me. And he's like, yeah. Because he's always just like, yeah, okay, I see. Like that's all he says basically. And she's like, can you take off your helmet? So he takes it off. And then everybody is like, it's all drunk and they're eating this stuff. And they all run over to see his face. They're like, whoa, the Goblin Slayer's face. He's showing his face. And like everybody's all hyped to see his face. That's my favorite scene of the show. I guess you guys could call this a guilty pleasure, but I genuinely enjoyed everything about this show. It was only 12 episodes. It was quick, easy, but I really liked it. But yeah, I mean, that's my thoughts on Demon Slayer. I might read the light novel and buy the manga because I kind of want to see more of it. I liked it. I enjoyed it. But yeah, that's all I had to say.